And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with Ellis Hennigan, Amy Holmes, and Carl Higbee. Well, Bill and Hillary Clinton may need to get their story straight. This as Mr. Clinton appeared to contradict Mrs. Clinton when it comes to her email use. The former president said a few months ago that he's only sent 2 emails in his life. A spokesman at the time said one went to U.S. troops and the other went to former astronaut John Glenn. I've sent 3 and 2 of mine have gone there as well. But just a few months ago, the other was booking Amy for tonight. But just a few months ago, Hillary Clinton, defending the use of a private email server, Secretary of State, said her private server contained personal communications between her and the former president. So I guess this all depends on what your definition of the word is, Amy. What's going on? A, do you believe Bill Clinton that he only sent 2 emails in his entire life?
You know, sadly, I believe his version more than hers. When she says,
because she sent 55,000.
Right. No, but when she says that, I use my personal email to, emailing my husband, etc. I think we remember when the New York Times did an investigation into the Clintons and how little time they actually do spend together. So it doesn't surprise me if they don't have the warmest email relationship. But it seems like the Clintons can't get their story straight. If you remember, Hillary said she only had 1 private email address. It has since come to light she has at least 2 private email addresses. One that she used with her consigliere, Sidney Blumenthal, to actually discuss policy, not just private things. Hillary Clinton, she's already suffering politically from this email disaster in terms of her trust numbers, and those are going down. And interestingly, as the Washington Post and ABC News reported, that decline is being driven by Democrats who are losing faith in Hillary Clinton.
That's right. Bernie Sanders is getting huge crowds in Iowa, and he actually within 8 points in Wisconsin in one poll that came out earlier this week. Else, here's what I want to ask you, because we can't prove one way or another how many emails Bill Clinton sent, so it's speculation.
Really don't care.
What's that?
You don't care, right?
Well, yeah, I care that he only said he sent 2, and I have a hard time believing that. But here's what I want to know. Are you surprised at the campaign that Hillary has run to this point in terms of not talking to the press, being off key, Bill saying I got to pay my bills when I asked him about the speeches and are you going to continue to do it? It seems like they're excellent politicians. I think we could all agree. Bill Clinton, anyway, is an excellent politician. Hillary, maybe not so much. Yeah, he has. And people admire him for that. But they seem off key. They don't seem in sync. I don't see a good campaign being run so far.
Yeah, it's always a mistake to run a front-runners campaign. It's so tempting, right? I mean, you're 40 points ahead in the polls or 50 points ahead in the polls, and so you run to the rose garden, or at least the theoretical rose garden. And, at some point you wake up. Someone starts coming up. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to be the Democratic nominee. I mean, I hear your figures, but I still don't think he's going to make the sale.
I'm just surprised he's even making somewhat of a race out of it.
But also, listen, I mean, we're smart enough to understand, she has some huge advantages in this fight, right? I mean, tons of money, humongous support, weak opponents. I mean, most likely she's going to be the nominee.
So you agree with her not speaking to the press?
No, I hate it.
Capacity? Okay.
I hate it. I want to read every single
probe
in her brain.
But to your point about Bill and Hillary seeming to be out of sync and not having the same story that they need to be sticking to, it points to the fact that they both run very separate organizations. The staff around him while he's traveling the world, giving speeches, collecting $500,000 and possibly influencing public policy.
Paid, right?
Right. And Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State and United States Senator, she has her staff around her, and I think the Clinton team, Clinton Inc., is going to have to figure out how to integrate that.
Okay, Carl, last word.
I mean, look at this. One of the Clintons not been above board, right? He didn't inhale. He did not have sexual relations with that woman. I think it's only a matter of time before these scandals like the email one and like the Benghazi thing are really going to come out in the front of the media, and that's going to be a big deal.
Then I'm curious what happens. Then does a Mike Bloomberg jump in? Does a Joe Biden jump in? 0, because you're saying there's no alternative.
Here's the thing. No, it's just
it's 15 seconds, just quickly, because we've got to move on.
It's the fact that the Clintons have been part of our life for 3 decades now, and little piddly things like that are not going to change anything. They really aren't.
And that will be the last word.
Lovers, haters, everybody feel the same way.
All right. Mrs. Clinton will be here in New York this weekend to give what's billed as a major speech on her economic vision. But there will be one noticeable absence. Democratic New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. He tells Capital New York he's still waiting to hear Hillary's larger vision, to address income inequality. So is this snub from the man who successfully ran her 2000 Senate campaign? Are you surprised by this?
I mean, people of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party doesn't embrace all things about Mrs. Clinton. She's way too moderate, way too hawkish. I mean, there's lots of people on the left of the Democratic Party who are withholding support and will ultimately most likely come around, but they're not enthusiasts.
Of course, this is a snub. A Democratic mayor of New York City in the state that Hillary Clinton represented as a United States Senator, refusing to meet with her when she's supposed to be the front runner of the Democratic Party to become president of the United States. You'd think they'd at least have coffee.
True. Carl, you're a big fan of de Blasio.
Yeah, huge fan. What's his future plans? That's what I want to know. He's doing this to make a statement so he can build momentum behind himself for something.
For a presidential run in 2020, perhaps.
Maybe
Good
another
Lord.
seat.
I thought he wouldn't get one term as mayor.
Yeah.
I've heard talk of people saying, wow, he could be a future presidential candidate.
This could be a big stance because I think the media is turning
de
against
Blasio
it.
Warren?
Who was the last mayor of New York elected president?
Let's see. It wasn't Rudy Giuliani, I can say that. Moving on the Republican side, potential 2016 hopeful Jeb Bush is touting his foreign policy credentials, meeting with the president of Poland in Warsaw. But it's the foreign policy of his brother George that remains a concern for former Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn.
I like Jeb Bush. But the fact is his last name will kill 47% of the votes for him, potential votes in this country. That's a big deal to get over.
Carl, what is it with that number 47 that just keeps coming up in campaigns?
It's close to 50, but it's not powerful. I think, and I like Jeb Bush. I've met him. I think he's a really great guy. I think he's the only person that can definitively lose to Hillary.
Definitively
Really?
lose.
Why?
Yeah.
Because you agree
Because
with
of the
Coburn.
name. I agree.
Because of the name.
Because of
but
the
she
name.
has a name also that,
but
has
Bush
baggage
came
as
after
well.
Clinton.
Here's what I would
So
say,
it's more
though.
recent
The
than
Clinton
people's
brand, when you look back at that presidency in the 90s,
Yeah.
is favorable.
That's true.
And the Bush brand, maybe not so
A bit
much.
tarnished.
Right, exactly. So do you think that there are enough low information voters out there who say, well, he's a Bush, I'm not going to vote for him, I don't care if he is the smarter, better version of the Bush brothers?
I think it's up to Jeb Bush to define himself. Obviously, it's an obstacle and it's a hurdle. I don't know where the 47% comes. That's just also the number of Democrats who won't vote for a Republican.
It is odd, that's true. Alice, we got to go, but when we come back, is Al-Qaeda going bankrupt? Stay tuned.